The electric scooter market can actually be a bit of a minefield, especially if you're a new buyer. There's a huge divide between what brands and manufacturers present as the truth and what the actual reality is. So today I want to go over some of the things that you should know about electric scooters before you purchase one, and hopefully this will help you make a better decision on which electric scooter to buy, and to also have the proper expectations when you finally get your scooter and start riding it. If you only take one thing away from this video, it's that the specs lie. You should be highly skeptical of any sort of number or specification that you see on an electric scooter website, because most of the time they're either just straight up lies or they are heavy exaggeration. The number one culprit is the range number that these brands present. The range number that they're giving you is often a simulated range number just based on the size of the battery and doesn't reflect actual real world riding conditions. And if it is a number that they achieve through testing, it's often done while riding the scooter extremely slowly in the lowest riding mode. Every single scooter has multiple different riding modes that will often cap the acceleration and top speed. If you're starting out on a scooter, you can ride it in the lower mode while you get your feet under you, or if you want to extend that range, you can ride it in that lowest mode. However, most people won't be using that lowest riding mode and riding the scooter at 9 miles an hour for the entirety of the battery life. Also, these range numbers are often based on a very light rider, often 150 to 165 pounds. There are almost no full-sized American males that are that light and are going to be riding the scooter that slow. So a good rule of thumb is to take that max range number that they give you and cut it in half. And that is a rough estimate of the realistic range you're going to get when riding in one of the middle or highest riding modes. Now, there definitely are brands out there that are more honest about range numbers, and these brands are going to disclose their testing methods on the website. So if you read that they actually did a real world test with a 200-pound rider, then that is a lot more trustworthy than brands claiming that a $500 scooter can go 65 miles. I also want to note when it comes to the range is that you probably need less range than you think you do. Now, I know people get range anxiety and they want to have a nice big buffer, but the vast majority of people aren't going to get anywhere close to draining their battery in a normal commute or on a normal ride. I do think range is important, but I don't think it should be the sole deciding factor when you're looking for an electric scooter. Another common thing that is falsified or over-exaggerated is top speed. Now, this one's not as egregious, but almost always the actual GPS top speed is anywhere from 3 to 10 miles an hour slower than what the manufacturer will claim. These scooters may theoretically be able to go as fast as they're claiming, but when you are riding in real world conditions with tire friction and a adult rider on it, then you're obviously not going to be able to achieve those factory perfect conditions. Another number that has much less relevance than you would think is the motor output number. Now, you can use these numbers to kind of give yourself a ballpark of what type of scooter are you looking at. You know that anything under 1,000 watts is likely a single motor commuter style scooter. You know that anything from 1,000 to 2,000 watts of max output is going to be a quicker commuter scooter, likely dual motor, or a more powerful single motor scooter. You know, anything over 2,000 watts is starting to verge into the performance category. But you can't compare these numbers side by side and say one scooter is going to be faster or accelerate more quickly because the number is bigger. There are a lot more factors than just this motor output number that go into determining how quickly a scooter accelerates and what its actual top speed is. That's what reviews are useful for. Rather than being just a spec dump, a good review should show you how fast a scooter is and what it's like to actually ride. The next important thing to understand is that more money does buy you a better electric scooter. There are not some crazy shortcuts, and these $600 Amazon scooters claiming to go 50 miles an hour haven't hacked the system or aren't offering an insane value. Almost every single scooter has some sort of compromise, be it the weight, the range, the speed, the features. And what you lose with these cheap scooters that claim to go fast is the quality side of things. These are parts bin scooters that have been pieced together with little to no testing. They don't care about safety standards. They're not going to have any sort of warranty. And these are the ones that are going to light on fire in your garage and burn your house down. There's a reason why these name brand scooters cost what they cost, because it costs a lot of money to develop a good electric scooter. High quality battery cells, high quality metals, high quality brakes, and all these other good components cost money, and you can't get those better components and that peace of mind without spending a little bit more money. Now, there's obviously always deals to be had, and there's definitely scooters that feel like a better deal at different price points. But generally speaking, you get what you pay for. And that actually segues perfectly into my advice on how much money you should spend on an electric scooter. Again, going on Amazon, it might be tempting to purchase a cheap $250 or $300 electric scooter. After all, on paper, it seems to offer everything that the name brand scooters offer, but at half the price. But it's my genuine advice to save a little bit more money if you can. Spend the money on the name brand scooter. Spend the money on a slightly better scooter, and you'll actually save money in the long run. I also think if you're an adult rider, I think it's worth it to move to the next price tier and the next performance tier over what you think you want. A 15-mile-an-hour scooter or even a 20-mile-an-hour scooter is going to feel very slow after just a week or two of riding. If you can jump up to that $1,000 price tier and get something that goes 25 or 30 miles an hour, then you have some room to grow into a scooter, and it will always feel fast and fun. If I had to pick a sweet spot price, I think if you can spend $1,700 to $1,800 on an electric scooter, you can get a scooter that you won't ever feel the need to replace, that you'll just ride forever and will always be fun and high quality. You can check out any of my best of lists if you want some recommendations at different price points. I will link my most recent one down below in the description, as well as my website article, which is the most often updated version of this list. Let's dive a little bit into the details of electric scooters and talk about some features you should look for when purchasing an electric scooter. The first one is the throttle style. Now, I have a whole video dedicated to this, but generally speaking, you should be looking for a thumb or a trigger throttle. Now, a twist throttle sounds good in theory, but there are a number of reasons why it's suboptimal for an electric scooter. Again, I dive into those in that video, so I will link that down below in the description if you want a deeper dive into that. The next thing you should look for is a scooter with full suspension. Now, there have been some exceptions over the years of scooters that are rigid and have no suspension that I've still really liked, but those scooters were always scooters that went less than 20 miles an hour. If you're planning to go 20 or faster on your electric scooter, then you absolutely need suspension. Depending on the price tier you're shopping in, you should look for hydraulic suspension that is adjustable. That will allow you to adjust the rebound and help keep those wheels planted. With the small size of electric scooter wheels, an unexpected pothole can immediately kick you off the scooter, or at least cause you to lose control of the scooter momentarily. Good suspension can fully mitigate that. So when you're looking at reviews, look at how much travel the suspension has and look for those little red adjustable knobs. Another feature you should look for is hydraulic disc brakes. Now, cable-driven disc brakes aren't the worst. They are going to require a little bit more daily upkeep, and you can get away with drum brakes on slightly slower scooters, but the absolute pinnacle is going to be those hydraulic disc brakes. These are going to offer the most well-rounded braking experience. They're relatively sensitive so that you can do small featherings of the brakes in order to make adjustments to your speed, but they're also generally going to have the best lockup braking power and bring you to a stop in the shortest time. This is particularly important for faster scooters to make sure that you can react to a car pulling out in front of you or something like that. Drum brakes definitely look the best aesthetically, but they're also going to be the slowest stopping distance. You can get away with drum brakes plus electronic braking on scooters under about 25 miles an hour, so I wouldn't say that is a deal breaker, but if you can, try and find disc brakes and optimally hydraulic disc brakes. Next important feature to look for is the tire type. Now, generally, tubeless pneumatic tires are going to be both the most comfortable and the easiest to repair. Now, replacing a whole tire is a bit of a struggle on a scooter, but for most punctures on tubeless pneumatic tires, you can just seal those up with a regular tire patch kit or a bit of sealant. If you do get a scooter with tubed pneumatic tires, make sure it has split rims. The way to check for this is to see if there's 2 sets of bolts on the rims of the scooter. One set of bolts is to open up the motor itself, and the other set of bolts is to slide off the tire and rim in order to replace a tube. Some tubeless tires also have split rims. If you can find that feature in a scooter, that is the absolute optimal setup. However, it's much more rare and tends to only be available in more expensive scooters. The next thing I want to talk about that is often misunderstood is the weight of an electric scooter. While they do fold and a lot of scooters look very light, almost every single electric scooter is gonna weigh significantly more than you think. If you read that a scooter is 55 pounds and you go, that's way too heavy, it's a deal breaker, well, that's kind of how much scooters weigh. Unless a scooter has been specifically crafted to be as light as possible, it's gonna probably be a significant burden to carry around for extended periods of time. Luckily, that doesn't matter as much as you think it does. I've been riding electric scooters for over 5 years now, and I even use electric scooters as my primary mode of transportation for multiple years. I even lived on the 3rd floor of my apartment complex at that time. And I actually found in that time that it was exceedingly rare to have to carry around my scooter for any sort of extended period. Yes, carrying up a scooter 3 flights of stairs is annoying, but I found that as long as it was under like 60, 70 pounds, then I could manage it. I also would sometimes use a tram or a train in order to get around. And I found that even in those situations, I could just roll my scooter into the specific bike trolley and I wouldn't have to fold it up or carry it at all. If you think you're going to be carrying around your scooter a ton, I challenge you to think very hard about when those times would actually be. I'm not saying that weight doesn't matter at all, but I also don't think that you should have that be your #1 priority if you're looking for a scooter. Most single motor commuter scooters are going to be in that 40 to 50 pound range. Most dual motor commuters are going to sit in that 60 to 80 pound range. And once you get to the expensive over $2,000 scooters, then you definitely shouldn't be buying those with portability in mind at all because they're going to be around 100 to 140 pounds. My next piece of advice is related to portability, but it's to not get too tunnel visioned on a single feature or spec of an electric scooter. I know a lot of people use things like top speed or the weight as the primary way that they compare electric scooters. And as I talked about in one of my recent videos, the thing that my all-time favorite scooters all have in common is that they balance portability, performance, features, and price really, really well. You should get yourself a small toolkit when you buy your electric scooter so that you can handle issues. You should look and find the solutions to your problems before immediately going to the manufacturer or the distributor, because generally they don't care very much. When it comes to repairs, there's actually a decent amount of crossover between electric scooters and bikes, both electric bikes and regular bikes. If you're having problems with your brakes or your brakes feel mushy or whatever, instead of searching electric scooter brakes not working or something along those lines, you can try looking up mountain bike tutorials or electric bike tutorials on how to adjust your brakes. Same thing goes for tires. Like I mentioned earlier, you should know how to fix a flat on your specific scooter. And if you did your research properly, then you should have a scooter that is slightly easier to fix when you have these issues. Checking your scooter for loose bolts and for wiggles anywhere regularly will also help make sure that your scooter doesn't have any issues in the future. So I hope this video helps you understand electric scooters a little bit better and what you should look for when purchasing an electric scooter. Let me know what I missed down below in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Get subscribed if you want to see more reviews and more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.